Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Build It with Tim. On this week's episode, we've got some new graphics, we've got a new intro, and of course, a new video for you all. All right, this week we are talking about building a pricing calculator. We're going to do most of this inside of the data builder, but of course, I'll show you some things inside of the page builder and the live app as well. But the pricing calculator itself is not necessarily the point of this video. The point of the video is to talk about equations, complex formulas, and import templates, okay? How we can build a template to continuously and consistently import data into our application, either from the data builder or the live app, and have all of this pricing calculation stuff just kind of work automatically. All right, let's take a look and I'll see you in the builder. Okay, so when we are done with this particular build, we are going to be able to import records from a CSV from our live published application, and we're going to be doing so using an import template, which is going to automatically take product and supplier information like a SKU or a supplier name. It's going to look up a record from a connected table. It's going to set the connection. We're also going to be importing a base cost. And then our markup, total USD cost, and total cost AUD are complex formulas and equations that are going to automatically do some math for us, some calculating for us in order to get these values upon import. Okay, so it's as easy as selecting our CSV, hitting next, and importing our data. All right, I'll show you how to build it next in the builder, and I'll see you there. All right, so in order to build this pricing calculator, we're going to break things down into three different tables. But first, let me provide some context for kind of what we're doing here. All right, so we are an organization that purchases products from multiple suppliers. Okay, when we purchase those products from suppliers, we have a spreadsheet or a CSV that contains all of the products that we received and from which supplier and a base cost of how much we paid for them. Okay, we want to bring that data into our Tadabase application. We want to automatically calculate things like markup and exchange rates. Okay, so that is the context for what we're doing. And like I said, all we need to do this is three simple tables. The first table is, of course, products. Okay, we are purchasing products from suppliers. We need to know what products we are actually purchasing. Right, so we'll create our first table called products, and we're only going to add one additional field here at this time. Okay, I understand that your products table might be much more complex. Maybe you have product categories. Maybe you have a lot of different information that you want to track about the products. But for the context of this video, we're only going to do the product name, and we're going to add another text field, and we're going to call this SKU, okay? Because all we really need for this is a way to identify our products. All right, so the next table we need is suppliers, right? We have a list of suppliers that we typically order from. Of course, we'll be able to add new suppliers, edit suppliers, delete suppliers if we choose to, but we need to store that data inside of a suppliers data table. Okay, now the third table we're going to need, actually, let me finish up the suppliers table first. So here on the supplier table, we're going to store a markup value. Okay, and the reason why I'm doing that on the supplier table as opposed to the product table is because let's say we are like a screen printing organization, okay, and we want to, we're typically purchasing blank t-shirts, right, and from different suppliers based depending on what supplier we order those t-shirts from. The supplier may charge us a different value. Therefore, we are going to include the markup on the supplier table so that when we purchase those products, we can adjust the actual markup based on the supplier who we're receiving it from. Okay, so we're going to do the markup here. I'm going to choose a number field. We'll call this markup, and I'm going to set this as a decimal. Okay, so 2 decimal places. So if I wanted to mark it up 20%, I'll do 0.20. Okay, so we'll include our markup field here. And now, lastly, we'll talk about this third table, which by now I hope you're familiar with, but is referred to as a join table. Okay, the suppliers and the products have no connection fields between them. Okay, there is no connection fields between these two tables. There is no relationship. They do not talk to one another. What we're going to do is we're going to add a third table, and just for simplicity, we'll call this product price calculator. There we go, I can spell. And this is going to have a connection to both tables, one connection to the product, and we'll choose the SKU as our display field, and one additional connection to suppliers. Okay, and now we have joined these two tables by utilizing a third table. Okay, now on this table, we also need some information, some more static information, not necessarily dynamic, and you'll understand what I'm talking about in a moment, but we need to add a base cost. Okay, when we import our CSV or a spreadsheet, it's going to contain a SKU, it's going to contain a supplier, it's going to contain a base cost. Those are the three fields that are coming in from our CSV. From that point forward, we can add additional fields that dynamically do lookups and calculations. So here we're going to add a currency field, and we'll call this base cost. And we'll configure our currency here. So 2 decimal places and a thousands delimiter of a comma. Okay, and now what we're going to do is start to work with equations and data that lives in other tables. Okay, first let's go add a couple products to our products table. All right, so let's continue with this example of a company that does screen printing and we're ordering t-shirts. So let's say we do a, I don't know, how do we want to do this? Well, okay, we'll do colors. So white t-shirt, and we'll call this WT01. Sure, that'll be our SKU. Black t-shirt, and this will be BT01. And how about a red t-shirt? Okay, these are our 3 products with our SKUs. Okay. Now, our suppliers. We're only going to add a few here, but let's do supplier ABC with a markup of 10%. And let's do supplier XYZ with a markup of 20%. Okay, so we have this kind of base data that we can work with now, and we have to think ahead a little bit for when we import this data. We have a connection to the product, we have a connection to supplier. We have our base cost. We want to calculate the base cost plus the markup depending on what supplier is listed here in this record value. In order to do that, we can use a complex formula, okay, a count, max, min, average, sum. Because we only have one markup value per supplier, I suppose we could have more than one. But in this case, all I'm really going to do is I can use like a maximum, right? Go get the maximum markup, or I could do a sum, right? There's only one value that we're looking up. So for now, I'll just pick maximum. Okay, and this is going to be markup. All right, now the markup lives in the supplier table. So we're going to go look into the supplier table. And the reason we can do this is because we have a connection from this table to this table. So now with these complex formula fields, we can go through that connection, pick the table that we're connected to, and then we can select our function. Like I said, I'm going to do maximum. There's only one value that we're looking at, so maximum, minimum, sum will still return the same thing. And the field that I'm going to get the max value of is the markup. Okay, and now I'm going to format this just like I did in the other table with the 2 decimal places. And if I were to add a record here and choose a supplier, you're going to see we're going to pull in dynamically that markup, all right? And if I were to change the supplier's markup, let's say I change this to 0.15, it's going to change there as well, okay? So here, let's set this back to 0.10. All right, and I just wanted to briefly mention that if you were building this out where you said, okay, though the past products that I've imported, I don't want those values to change if I change the supplier markup, then I'll show you another method of how we can transfer this markup from the supplier table to the product price calculator table. Okay, so if you want previous imports to have a static markup value in this product price calculator, then we can add a number field. We can call this markup just like we did in um, the supplier table, 2 decimal places. And then we could use something like a table rule to say when a record is created, set that markup value to a connected value of the supplier's markup. Okay, now when a record is created, it's going to pull in and save that value statically. And then if I go ahead and change this markup, you can see it's not going to change, but our complex formula still will, okay? So that's how you can do that if you choose to go that particular route. But I'm going to use the complex formula for now. Delete my rule. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is start to calculate costs. Okay, so we have a base cost that's going to be inputted, and then we have our markup. So in the most basic sense, to do our total cost, we are going to add some fields here, and let's say total cost. And this is going to be our base cost plus the markup times 100. Okay, so we'll do parentheses, markup times 100. So we're converting this decimal place here, markup times 100. And that's good. So now we can do our currency. And we're good to go. All right, so if I have a base cost here now of, let's say, $100, we are now adding these two together. So markup times 100 plus the base cost equals $115. All right, and we'll do the same thing for here. All right. Now, the next thing we want to do is, well, what if we wanted to do an exchange rate? Okay, we can set up another number field here, or number formula, to do an exchange rate. So something like converting US dollars into Australian dollars. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do another number formula. We'll say total cost for Australia. Okay, now let me look up the exchange rate. This is something that we're going to have to modify on the fly until, maybe we do another Build It with Tim video where we have some sort of API where we're getting the current exchange rate. But for now, we'll do it just kind of by ourselves. So we need to do the base cost. We're adding some additional parentheses because we need to do more calculations, but here we'll do the markup times 100. Okay, and then we'll multiply the whole thing by 1.58. Okay, markup times 100, add it to the base cost, then take that whole value, multiply it by 1.58 so that we can do the Australian conversion. All right, now set this up the same way, and we're good to go. All right, so now we have all of our fields, right? These first three fields come in from our CSV import. The last three fields, markup, total cost USD, and total cost AUD, come from dynamic values, okay, and formulas to calculate all of this for us. All right, now how are we going to bring in this data? Well, we're going to import it, and we could just go up to import, and we could select a CSV, and we could map our fields, and then we could import it. But we want to automate that. We want that to be a little bit faster and a little bit easier. So we're going to navigate to the Automation tab and set up an import template. All right, so we'll call this product price. We'll have a product order import. Okay, we're going to give this template a name, and then we're going to select the table that we're going to be working with, or where we're going to be importing this data. And that the table that we're going to be importing to is the product price calculator. All right, the next thing we are doing is mapping fields. Okay, so let me pull up a CSV of the data we're going to be working with. Okay, so here is our spreadsheet that we're working with, right? We have our products, we have our suppliers, and we have our base cost. Okay, so in order to use the import template, we need to map these columns to our fields. Okay, and in order to do that, we can go to the field mapping tab here and start to add fields. Okay, so let's do, well, first let's do base cost. Now, when we are mapping our CSV to our fields, you can see under this column, the mapping CSV field, it says exact spelling, case sensitive of the column of your CSV file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the headers from my CSV columns, and I'm going to paste them for the relevant fields. Okay, so base cost is going to be here. All right, this tells the system to go find this column by this exact name and import the data to this field. Okay, so the next one, or the next two we're going to do are connection fields, okay? We have a connection to the products table, a connection to the supplier table, okay? And we've used a display value of the SKU for the product and the supplier name for the supplier, all right? When we are mapping an import template to connection fields, we're going to get the option to select a field from the connected table that we want to use to match the record that we want to connect with. Okay, so let's see, I have supplier and product. Let's add those two fields. We have product, whoops, this has to be exact, so let's make sure I get it right. Product and supplier. Okay, so the product, we are going to go into the product table. When this CSV gets imported and we are trying to set the connection, we are going to go into the product table and we're going to look up our imported value by SKU in order to find that record and set the connection. When we import our CSV with a supplier name, we're going to go into the supplier table and we are going to match the record that we want to import by supplier name. And then we're going to bring back that record ID and set the connection. So I've chosen those options here for the data table field. Okay, when we have connections in our table, you're going to get this expanded view of being able to select what field you want to use as kind of like a match when you're importing in order to set that connection properly. Okay, so we are going to select the SKU from the product table and the supplier name from the supplier table. Okay, this is all we need to do for our import template today. Okay, but we do have the option to set conditions on import and also import rules. But again, I don't necessarily need those right now, so I'm going to kind of skip past them. All right, so I'm going to save my template and I can go back to the data builder. Okay, and now I can import it. So if we click import here, you can see we have this template option selected, and now we can select our import template. We're going to browse for our CSV, and now all we have to do is hit next, and it's going to import those records. It's going to set those connections because we told it to go find the matching value in the products table by SKU and the supplier name by supplier, or supplier table by supplier name. Okay, we've imported our base cost, and now our complex formula, our number formulas run after those records are created, and our product price calculator table is now complete. Okay, so if you were managing this from your organization or within your own organization, then of course you could import this through the data builder, right? By logging into the Tadabase builder, going to the data table and clicking import, or we can do this on the front end or the live app as well. So let's navigate to the page builder, and quickly what we're going to do is we're going to set up a table to add and edit products. Okay, so we have the add form. Now let's put an edit link in there so that we can edit this product as well. Show it in a pop-up. Okay, that's good to go. Now we'll do the same thing with suppliers. Okay, and now we can add and edit suppliers as well. All right, let's get rid of the sample page. Now the last page that we're going to do is our product price. We'll call this product price import or product order import, I guess, because that's what our template is called. And we can add this to our menu as well. And we're going to show a table of our product price calculator. We're going to show the records from that table. All right. And we don't need to add anything additional for now. We're just going to add the data table. So you can see when we log in or preview this page, right? These are the records that we previously imported. But we need a way to import this from the live app. And of course, we have that particular method. So we're going to add a new component, and we're going to choose the import component. Okay, we're going to be given the choice of what table we're going to import to. And you can only do this when you have a template. Okay, so we're going to customize this, and we are going to select our template. And now we're good to go. I don't think we need to do any other options other than maybe change the title. We'll just say import CSV of product orders. Sure. We're not doing any record matching. We don't need a custom delimiter, and our design, we could change that if we want to, but we don't need to. The only thing I'm going to do, just because this button is going to be quite large, is make that column smaller. Okay, now when I preview this page, I have this button to import. So it's going to bring up a similar window like it does in the data builder where we're selecting our CSV. Hit next. It's going to import, and if I refresh this table, you can see now we have 6 records. Okay, so this gives the users or your organization the ability to import this data directly from your actual live published application. And of course, all of these fields are going to update automatically, do all of your calculations for you, figure out your total prices, total costs, things like that, whatever else you'd like to add to this. All right. And that's how we can build a pricing calculator using equations and import templates. I hope you enjoyed this week's video, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.